right, guys. So, welcome to the Week 10 reaction show of D2 HBCU football. First time we've done this, but we figured it was fitting. We started at the end of the year. It's been a wild year, and Saturday was literally no different. Pretty much what we expected in the SIAC. There were a lot of scenarios. We didn't know which ones would happen and which ones we would have to watch. And it turns out we had to wait to the final one. And in the CIAA, we knew who it would be between, but we did not know who would win. And now we know that as well. Of course, I'm SJG, joined by K Ferg. Before we get started, everybody that's in here, make sure that you guys like the stream and share. And then also, make sure you guys, what's up? Shout out to Andre King, our Wisconsin viewer, our number one fan in Wisconsin for sure is Andre King. Kris, how you doing today, man?
Doing good. There's a lot going
Man.
on, a lot to figure out, a lot to soak in.
Yeah. A lot of teams are already starting to look ahead to 2024. While a couple teams still have some things to play for in 2023. So the first video that you guys saw, that was the Albany State football team. Now, what they were doing, they were celebrating not only their win over rival Fort Valley State, who, came into the day thinking they might have had a chance to go to the SIAC championship game. But they got that win. And then they also had to do some waiting on pins and needles as Miles and Tuskegee, those two rivals from Alabama, took on each other. And we were finally able to figure out what was going to go on. And, we were looking forward to that game. It's a big game. Miles and Tuskegee are separated by not that far. There's a lot of overlap between the two programs, and we expected it to be a close game. And Kris, it really just wasn't.
Yeah, no, it was definitely not. I mean, I think with Albany, I think there were certainly a lot of questions going into the season, and they had to really start slow, mainly because of who they played. Wingate and Valdosta State to start the year. But they slowly started to gel and put things together, and for them to get to the championship game, and they just kind of come out of nowhere to do it. First by taking down Miles, and then following that up with this win yesterday. I mean, I think that just speaks to perseverance, and that's what you saw with this Albany State team, who just came out and snatched a berth away from three teams ahead of them that are 7-3 overall, but have the same number of conference losses. So big kudos to them.
Yeah, huge way to I guess probably end the season for Miles. They won't be making the playoffs now because with the loss they took to Albany State, but there is the chance for them maybe to be in the bowl game. We'll see what happens with that. Everybody's still kind of trying to figure out what's happening on that end. But what we do know is Albany State, under first-year head coach Quinn Gray, is taking their talents back to the SIAC championship game. Of course, we know his predecessor, Coach Gabe Gardenia, who had a big win at the FCS level at Charleston Southern on Saturday. We know he took his team to the championship game a couple years in a row and wasn't able to pull it off before he was actually able to do it last year. So it's going to be really exciting. I'm sorry, not last year, 2021. These years, this post-COVID thing, it just kind of, maybe a little bit of old age. And I just had my birthday the other day. But anyway, so big shouts out to Albany State. I know he's not on here now, and I would say not only Kendrick, but myself as well. A lot of people saw them come out number 2 in the SIAC predicted finish, and they kind of laughed. If they didn't laugh, they at least scratched their head. But yeah, the first year head coach, you lost Coach G, and but hey, here we are. What do we know? Hey, maybe the coaches do know something after all. There's another situation of that in the CIAA, but we'll get to that a little bit later. Again. We guys, appreciate everybody for joining us for this special Week 10 reaction show. We aren't going to get too deep into the previews of next week or the playoffs or anything like that because we still got the regular show on Wednesday. But we did want to give you guys this. Now the other scenario over in the CIAA, we already knew what it was. Fayetteville State already locked up their bid to the CIAA championship game for the 1, 2, 3, 4, 6th time in a row. 6 times in a row. Defending champions. They haven't won pretty all year. It hasn't been, but they found a way to win every week since that 0-2 start, like Albany State, who also had an 0-2 start. Kudos to them there. But the game that everybody was looking for and everybody was pumped up, and Kobe, I know if you'll go ahead and before you come in, if you'll go ahead and show the clip with that shows the stands over at historic Hovey Stadium, and let everybody see a little bit of what we felt. And that's it was that kind of packed. They listed 15,000.
Yep.
I don't know if 15,000 realistic, but hey, I thought they only seated 10,000 was the thing, but hey, they got that whole fence. And sorry to the VSU fans that I offended with my laughing at the fence when they had their set of miscues. As we bring Kobe in, as Kobe was in with us, Kobe in with me, but Kris, I know you were kind of keeping up with a lot of other games, but your thoughts on this VSU-VUU matchup with Virginia Union taking a 30-20 win?
Particularly noticeable was the fact that VUU was able to go and use the passing game, and they used it very, very effectively. And that's something they've gotten better with over the last couple games, but the way they just sort of gashed Virginia State was very, very noticeable, especially when you're trying to key in on the run and force you to pass. They made them pay big time. And as for Virginia State, they always find ways to make games interesting. And I just wasn't sure if they're really good enough to overcome that against in a game like this. And it just seemed like, no, they just couldn't quite get there. The kicking woes in particular really, really showed up. And that's been, that's how they lost the Elizabeth City game. They missed extra point. So that's something that they've certainly got to address in the offseason. Last year they had issues with punting where they had to turn to Jordan Davis, the quarterback, to punt. But now they've got more issues in the kicking game, and the CIAA is just one of those schools, one of those conferences now that you've got to really play a complete game in all 3 phases of the game. So this is just a scenario where that's got to be a priority going into the offseason for them.
And again, as we're joined by Kobe, the producer, the man who wears a lot of hats around HBCU game day. I want to bring him in. He was there with me as well at Hovey Stadium yesterday for the game. Kris touched on it, but you and I were there. Just talk about that game, especially we got the obvious, the kicking game. I mean, it just fell apart at a certain point. Again, I had to apologize to the Virginia State fans that were over there by the fence because I literally laughed. I literally laughed in their face when they missed that last kick, just because I don't think anybody was really understanding why they were still kicking. Like, we get it as a 10-point game, but my God, they were horrible all day between the blocked extra points, one of them that counted, another one that didn't, between the missed field goal, the first field goal hit the uprights. I mean, the uprights got that work on Saturday, but talk to me, Cole. What were your thoughts?
It was a lot going on that game. I mean, the energy was electric. It was fantastic to sit and watch. But VUU did what they normally do, and the game was great. Both defenses played, but in the second half, their offensive line started to take control, and those miscues in the kicking game really, really hurt them. Because I know the score is I think it's 30-20, something close. But the game was a lot closer than that. And I don't know why they didn't try a fake, a pass, or go for it either. I don't like to be disrespectful to players, but I don't think he could kick anything. That game, he had a what they call it, a double doink. the first kick, and he just was short. And he definitely didn't listen to Tribe Called Quest because he could not kick it. Dad joke. But I just feel like Virginia Union did what they normally do to a lot of teams, and I was surprised that how it happened against BSU because they're normally a team that doesn't like. It was impressive to me because Virginia State normally is a very physical team also. And Virginia Union started wearing them down with the running game. Like you didn't have super large numbers. I think he had 155 on the day, but it was quiet. It was just 8 yards here, 5 yards here, 8 yards here, 5 yards here.
Killing them slowly.
And I was impressed. That's the first thing I said to Steve when they threw the first touchdown pass. I said, if that quarterback gets clicking, they want to throw up 40 points. Because that was the biggest question.
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure. I know we just had the other day when Kendrick was on, and speaking of Kendrick, we'll bring him in as well. We just said the other day, Kendrick, and as he's coming in his Sunday best, as it comes in his Sunday best, we'll get his reaction to the SIAC stuff in just a second. But he said it the other day, like he didn't want them in the playoffs because they couldn't pass the ball, or can they pass the ball? And I don't know the passing game. Maybe they heard you, Kendrick. Of course, we do know people do watch the show, players, coaches, administrators, everybody. But man, what a sight! I would be curious to get your thoughts, Kendrick, too. As well on your reaction when you heard the final score and then to see how it played out.
Surprisingly, can y'all hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So surprisingly, after I made that comment, the VUU people beat my inbox down on Twitter. You don't know nothing about our program. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna give y'all benefit of the doubt. I wouldn't look back through the program. The program has a really good story history. I even going back to way back in the day, VUU played a 16-year-old quarterback and had 2 undefeated seasons with a 16-year-old quarterback. But anyway, story for another day.
In private schools, man, y'all can get away with that type of stuff. Go ahead.
And they beating VSU. And I guess a lot of them did hear. They were talking about that. Hey, I think we're the better team. They proved that they're the better team. I still have some more to watch of them, but hey, at the end of the day, they won. And if they do get in the playoffs, I'm gonna root for them. I just hope that they have learned. I think it's a learning curve for all our schools when they get into the playoffs. Like there's a learning curve. Some of our schools just never catch up and learn. And so that's even the same thing for Benedict. I hope you learn from last year. You're not going out there, and there's no disrespect in breathing life into the thing that we play, a subpar version of football. But there is a curve to when you get in the playoffs, the physicality that comes along with it, the type of play calling, like how you have to approach the game is really different. And I just hope that you learn that. And when you go, play up to what we know that you can play. Like you don't dominate a Kentucky State, or you don't come there and beat a Virginia State that beat a Tuskegee that turn around and beat. They knocked off somebody yesterday. I can't remember who it was. But you don't beat those teams in the regular season and get in the playoffs and just go blank. Like go in there, because to be honest with you, even last year, Wingate, they were supposedly the underdogs in those games that they played. But you talk to those coaches. I mean, when you talk to those people privately, they don't feel like they're the underdog. When they
play 100%. I was at that Union game last year. Now they felt like
they have no underdog. Like they feel like, yeah, whatever. We gonna come out here and beat y'all. And it's like we have to read that, and that's all I'm saying. Like, go out there. Our coaches right now, I know Benedict is the 1-0 mindset and the SIAC championship. But I'm sorry, dog. Y'all ain't got time to celebrate that 1-0 if you win the SIAC championship. Your mindset got to be in. We don't need the blank. Like we've dominated the conference 2 years in a row. Now we need to show why we're the best. Go out and win in out of conference that playoff game. So that's just where my mindset is with it. And I'll just say this for any of those people who watching when we talk about these issues. I don't think anybody in this box or in this space disparages these institutions, because we do this because we love and support these institutions regardless. The football banter is the football banter. At the end of the day, we support it and we want to see the best for it. And sometimes it calls us to call them out like, hey, y'all need to play better. Like, y'all need to approach that better. You need to get better. These are the areas you need to get better in, because when we go into these other spaces and we want to talk, we can rah amongst ourselves. When we go into other spaces, it's like, yeah, we hear what y'all saying, but look what happened. You got blamed. So it's just one of them things that I hope that whoever makes the playoff for the HBC, whether CIAA, SIAC, you're prepared for what you what you're going to face. And just anyway, I'm gonna get off.
Yeah, Kendrick, you came in with your suit, man. You ready to preach? We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. We are going to get there because someone on this panel was called out the other day. So like I said it on Twitter. We ain't ducking no smoke. We ain't ducking no smoke. So here we go. But no, yeah, everything you just said. So you touched on Benedict quickly. We'll talk about them. They had their way with Allen. It was tied, I believe, at 7-7 early, and then Benedict just was Benedict. I mean, Allen's been a great story all year. And I said it would be a great story if they won, but that size of Benedict was real. And where they are as a program, it showed the difference between there. Your thoughts on that, quick, Kendrick?
Yeah, I've said all season that Benedict is here, and everybody else was trying to get to a place where we felt like they could challenge Benedict. We started talking about a standard. I think the way that Benedict has built their program was unique. I've talked to some coaches about how they, because now we're 3 years into Barry's reign. I know a lot of people just talk about the 2 years, but that 5-5 season he had is what laid the groundwork to those undefeated seasons. That 5-5 team went in and beat a Miles, who was, at that time dominating the conference, pretty much on their homecoming. So you saw like the progression they were being made. I know last year when they were talking about the grad transfers on the offensive line, like why would he go to that 1 year? But it was like he gave himself a cushion to develop some guys in, to be able to step in front. And you see now, like it worked out. So it's like this model. Now, I do expect, to be honest with you, I don't know why coaches are not following this model. I mean, it's right there's the blueprint. He did it at Benedict. Like, this is a model and a blueprint that can be implemented. I mean, you can make it your own, but you can implement it. And so, Coach Keaton, when you're talking about it, like I've had a lot of discussion, I've put it on Twitter. I think he's a good candidate for Coach of the Year. I think Coach Shea is a good candidate. But at the end of the day, Allen is an up-and-coming program. Benedict has found a way to manufacture a program. Like Benedict is like a program that has been programming for a while. And that just comes with the experience and expertise that comes with Barry. Allen is getting there. I think, it might be next year. It might be after next. But I think Allen is right there in the hunt. But they just weren't Benedict ready. Okay. And to be honest with you, most of the teams in the conference, they just weren't Benedict ready. And I mean, the proof is in the results.
No doubt about it. And, you talk about being Benedict ready, definitely important. As we think about what they've done, we got some comments here. Allen University will come in. Caleb Pierce, 34, good this year, but next year will be definitely dominant. Hey, man, you guys are right there at the groundwork. Albany State is coming to be in the game. The Rams are trying to win now. Don't forget, Albany State won the SIAC in 2021. Go Rams. Go Golden Rams. Golden Rams.
Everybody get up, get crunk, and do the Ram. But.
We don't know nothing about that. We don't know nothing about that up in these neck of the woods. It's just so hard to be a Ram around here. But we'll get to that. Back to the CIAA. We're gonna so there were a lot. So it was right. So beyond Virginia State, Virginia Union, which of course, because of where those two programs are and everything they've done, they kind of overshadowed everything else. But it was rivalry week in the CIAA, and rivalry week in the CIAA it's interesting. You got Virginia State, Virginia Union. They're in the same area code, right down the road. They were kind of like cute, friendly rivals. You know what I mean? Even though, some moments on the sideline where in the game it's physical, but after that, they like each other. There's some other rivalries, a little bit different. One of the rivalries took place down in Raleigh, and that was the Battle of Raleigh. There's a trophy there. There were several trophies that were actually given out the other day. So we had Shaw taking on St. Augustine's University. Of course, we had the situation with St. Aug just a little while ago where it was revealed a lot of the things they've been going through. They've had to switch coaches. They've had a lot of turmoil. On the other side of the baton, you got Coach Jones over at Shaw University, who's been there since, I believe, 2017. Kris, 2017, he's been there. They were on an upward trajectory for pre-pandemic. Couldn't get over that Fayetteville State hump. But they've had stability there where St. Aug has probably had 6 coaches, if not more, since Coach Jones has been there. But they won the game. Kris, talk about the game and what happened, and then we'll go to the clip, and I'll let you and we'll talk about what was said because it kind of went everywhere. So,
well, St. Aug and Shaw kind of. St. Aug and Shaw was one of those deals where it was a bit back and forth for quite some time, and really all the theatrics happened in the fourth quarter, and that just seems to be a constant theme in this game from one year to the next. A couple of things to just kind of throw out about this game. St. Aug actually outgained Shaw in this game. It's 338 to 247. Where St. Aug went wrong and where Shaw was able to capitalize is red zone, because St. Aug was really 1 of 4 in the red zone, and Shaw was able to convert their attempts in the red zone. So, it's one of those things that these are 2 very bitter rivals. They've really played really, really interesting, tough game. St. Aug had certainly a lot to try to play for, try not to be winless for one. And they had that lead. They had a 14-7 lead on the off of the arms and legs of DeAndre Proctor. They're kind of a wide receiver, Swiss Army knife, do everything. But in the end, Shaw prevailed and took home the trophy for the second straight year.
Yeah. And so after the win, Coach Adrian Jones over at Shaw got a chance to speak with Kris Clark of one of our good guys over there that's in Raleigh that covers all the HBCUs, really does a great job. And he had some comments that, hey, he actually did something that's rare at this instance. He actually called you by name. So we'll roll that clip, Kobe.
We ain't gonna say the name of the team, but we deserve to have it. And Chris Ferguson, I got a message to Chris Ferguson. Don't ever doubt my football team or my program. It's a reason why they predict us to be in the CIAA championship every year, because we've been second for the last 3 years. So do your research next time.
Kris, man, look, it's hey, I want to get your response. I know I had a response. I had several responses. But I had a response. But I want to get your response, and then I'll tap in.
So first of all, I now know how Kendrick feels. And second of all, it's always great to hear feedback from columns that are right and things that I put into this. So I really enjoy the discussions that I have with Coach Jones, and really respect and appreciate what he's done at Shaw. A couple of things I would kind of point out here. So, rivalry games are just one of those things that are really, really tough to predict sometimes. And my thought thinking into this was that, St. Aug certainly has had some flashes of success, despite not having a winning record, particularly on their defense. And they just really, if there's one game they really get up for, it's this game. And so between that and some of the struggles that Shaw had been having, it was definitely a bit of a reach. I'll give you that. But, it was a 21-14 game. So it was really one score. And that happened to be in the fourth quarter to make the difference. If you think about Shaw and kind of the way that things have kind of played out for them this year. So, I predicted Shaw out of the 10 games they played this year. I was actually right 7 of those games. One of the games that I missed in particular, actually, when they were winless, I actually predicted them to beat Elizabeth City, and they actually did it. And then I predicted them to beat Winston State. That didn't happen. And I missed the John C. Smith game. I mean, because that I think that was a little bit of a surprise to a lot of schools, and I think that just shows the potential Shaw had this year. But yet again, there were just a lot of things that just didn't go right for them. So, will they be predicted to be second next year? We know how the coaches predict and the patterns that they have. Probably not, because you got Johnson C. Smith and Livingstone there. But I just think it's a situation where, they'll go back to the recruiting trail and they'll be, a tough out yet again next year. And that's been kind of Shaw's mentality. So, I appreciate it, the call out. Those are always fun. So, yeah, it was all good.
Yeah. And again, Kris, I appreciate you for taking it all in stride. And just and knowing it's part of the game. Look, at the end of the day, like Kendrick said a little bit earlier, nobody here is going to disparage anyone. We may make jokes, we may laugh, you know what I mean, and we try to do this in an entertaining way because one, this space, even in the HBCU space, is hugely undersaturated. Right, Division II HBCUs, CIAA and the SIAC are often in a lot of places, and not everywhere, but a footnote if it mentioned at all. To the point where earlier last week, they had the situation where the kicker from Jackson State, the young lady Leilani, she was mentioned as the first HBCU kicker to score, and so many of us made sure that we mentioned Shaw University and their kicker India because, of course. While we appreciate Layla, we don't want we when you say HBCU, that means all of us. So I understand Coach and Coach Jones, one of my favorite folks in the CIAA, and I know he has a passion for his program. He cares about his guys. His guys care about him, and that is without a doubt obvious to everyone that has come in contact with him or has or knows of him. But at the same time, again, Kris, you are someone that I feel like is more than fair. I pulled up I was looking for something else and I happened to see something where, you were talking about them in 2021 and how they were on the upswing. You know what I mean? So I know you're not, I don't want it to be made out that you're sitting up here beating up on somebody's school or disparaging someone's program. Some things just are what they are. Yes, Shaw, under Coach Jones, has made a lot of strides, consistently being in contention of the CIAA South. But at some point, you're going to wonder, when are they going to break through? They've had some years where they got close. The last 2 years, they've taken steps back. I know last year they did finish second in the division. This year, they are second from the bottom, I think, from St. Augustine's. So, things happen in the season. And, nobody ever got rich off covering HBCU Division II football. Let's be honest. I'm trying to be the first one, and it's a hell of a struggle. But seriously, good luck to Coach Jones and his team and everybody else. But this is also sports, right? I said it last night. Sports is entertainment with a scorecard. So you're going to be judged by that. Folks getting paid. They have salaries. People are putting into the program, and I don't think Kris and I go harder on anybody's program than we do on our own alma mater. So with that being said,
for the record, through the regular season, I've gone 52-17.
Yeah, I haven't kept up my stats. I'm sure it's much worse than that. I will take a chance. I will definitely take a chance. But let's go from that. We'll go to some other private schools, right? We'll go down to the AUC, Morehouse and Clark Atlanta, and this was the game finally. Well, some cat was going to catch a bone, however that works out. So, Kendrick, you take it away. I mean, talk to us about that matchup. And, again, we'll talk later. We won't get too much about into the future, but just about that matchup and the two programs finishing up their season.
Yeah, so I see Jamie Walker, and then he called that game. It was the game of somebody has to win. I think it is um important because last year I think Clark Atlanta had won a couple of games, and Morehouse went into that game winless last year, and they got their first win on that game last year. So they've done it twice in a row. It's good to finish your season off with a win, especially with everything that was surrounding Morehouse the week before. Good to see Coach Wilcher get a win. I really wanted Coach Moncrief to get a win too, because I feel like he had really rallied those guys. They were playing hard for him, after they had the coaching change, and he was able to step in, and he was trying his best to, at least put a decent product on the field for the CAU faithful. I just think they're both programs that are in some type of transition. Okay. Still not sure. People can debate how much Morehouse cares about athletics. But for Clark Atlanta, I think they send a message to the world that they care about athletics. So that particular game was just, a C. I think for Clark Atlanta, they just wanted to get through the season. It was what it was, and so when I looked at that score and I saw Morehouse running away. Clark did make a game out of it because they tried to come back, but it was just too much for them. Rough season, and I just want to say shout out to their players for not quitting on that program. Talking about a program that hadn't had much success. All those seniors that are there, they haven't had much success since they've been there. A lot of those seniors that was there, getting an extra year with COVID. This is their third, fourth head coach in that program.
They're basically the St. Aug of the CA of the SIAC.
Right. And so, I respect those players for sticking around and toughing it out through the season.
Gotcha. Good stuff there. Shout out to Marcus watching from Chicago. Jamie, I appreciate you in the chat too. Everybody, guys, make sure you guys hit the like button and share this too. Again, this is just our quick. This is just our reaction show, and then we'll look forward ahead into next week on Wednesday. Going over to the CIAA, Bowie State and Lincoln University. Now in years past, this is usually a stats game, right? For Bowie State, this is usually this is usually your stat padding game. But obviously, Lincoln University has, they didn't show it against Virginia Union, and they damn sure didn't show it against Virginia State. But they've improved a lot this year, and I think their chance to play, I think that showed in their game against Bowie, and Bowie State showed that they're nobody far from a pushover, but definitely they got to put up some work to get back to the top of the CIAA. Kris, I'm gonna let you take that away.
Oh man, so as I mentioned in prior shows, if there are two games or two teams that I really like to see at home, it's Livingstone and it's Lincoln, because those games are just so exciting to watch. And one of the things that really just kind of came out of this game, I was a little concerned because of the lack of scoring over the last two games from Lincoln. Well, they did score 25 against Virginia State, but I was just concerned, how was this going to really play out against a game that can truly or really truly should be a much more competitive rivalry than it has been. And boy, it was a treat. It was like that commercial of anything you can do, I can do better, or worse in this case. We talked about kicking woes with Virginia State. I think that's a CIAA North issue because it happened with Bowie State. It happened with Lincoln. Bowie State would score. They would miss the extra point. Lincoln would score. Oh, Lincoln could take the lead. Oh, they would miss the extra point. Oh, my goodness. It was just a treat to watch. And what really made the difference in the game was really the turnover by Isaiah Freeman through an interception late in the fourth quarter. And Bowie went up 2 scores at that point. But that minor blemish it pales in comparison to what happened when you had Freeman scoring 6 touchdowns in this game. Jordan Morris, who is really the third quarterback to play for Bowie State and it seems to be, a potential long-term solution for them at that position. He himself was responsible for 5 touchdowns. I mean, this game lived up to. I think it really over delivered. It really truly did. I know a lot of people were watching VSU and VUU for a reason, but to me, this was like number 2 in terms of what happened in the game. It was a great game. It was an awesome game to watch.
Yeah. So a lot to look forward to. It's going to be really interesting in that CIAA North next year with Virginia State and Reunion should probably still be fielding good programs, but you got Bowie State trying to stay in the picture, and then obviously Lincoln there too. It's going to be really interesting to see how the transfer portal figures into all that. We'll talk about that a little bit on Wednesday because I know Kendrick had talked about that on the SIC level. We'll get into that a little bit later. We'll see how you guys are enjoying that. But as we get back over to the SIC, let's see, Kendrick. Before we talk about Tuskegee, is there another game you wanted to call attention to, or are you ready to give us your thoughts on that game?
I mean, another game that was interesting to me was the Savannah State Lane College game. Lane has been an interesting program. Talking about this is the same team that knocked off Tennessee State last year. Then they go 5-5. It's almost as if like they're good, like they're able to compete the first half of the season. Their injuries kind of plague them, and it gets a little hard for them to go down, the stretch of a game. I was one of the ones that felt like last year that was their opportunity to win. So this year that they've had some growing pains, they've had some ups and downs. They are a young team. And the 1 week that I just decided to just give up hope on them and give it to Savannah State, they beat Savannah State, which it's funny how the ball bounces. And I guess I wanted to highlight this game to say, to be honest with you, I think I had it wrong when I was my initial analysis of what the conference looked like. I just think that there is from the top to the bottom of the conference, because even the way even though Morehouse hadn't won a game, I mean they won one now, and Clark hadn't won a game, how they competed against the majority of the teams in the conference. That bottom half of the conference and that middle portion to that middle top portion, all the teams equal. Any of them teams get beat any day of the week. It was that much, as Hurt would say, parity in the conference. And it was done with a lot of young talent. All of our schools have young freshman talent. And I'll just leave this, and like you said, we'll talk about it later. My problem when I say about the transfer portal is we think about the transfer portal as if getting guys to come into your program. And there are some schools that do that. But for the SIAC, their makeup is a little bit different. We're being led by a bunch of freshmen and sophomores in a lot of categories in the conference. And this is because these guys were looked over because the upper division schools, they play around the transfer portal. So we was able to get some kids that would not normally come to us. And that's why, I said what I said about, I know somebody put in the chat about, I talked about it on Twitter, and I did, because, I see their parents shopping them around. It's plain as day. It's open. Like, there are a lot of parents that are shopping their kids around for the portal right now in the conference.
Right. As we start to wind down here, we're going to Kris, I'm going to ask you just briefly your thoughts on Livingstone and Johnson C. Smith as they finish up their seasons, and we'll get to Tuskegee. Then we got a little real reaction that has not been seen. So, Kris, Livingstone, this was another cup game, right? This was another classic game. Johnson C. Smith and Livingstone College, they had a giving challenge beforehand, and they got really into it. These are two oldest programs in HBCU football, and I love to clown that they've been playing since 1892, still trying to figure it out. Well, they figured out some things this year. Johnson C. Smith came out with the win. They're 7-3 this season, and I'm gonna put myself on the Summer Jam screen. Go ahead and one box me code. So CIAA Media Day Johnson C. Smith is picked to finish 6th. This was a team. I'm just like, what? I'm like, are they just watching Waleed's videos and like they're buying into the hype? But clearly, they finished 6-3. I'm sorry, 7-3. They won a non-conference game against a Division II opponent. They went 3-0 against the CIAA North, albeit it was Elizabeth City State, Bluefield State, and Lincoln. They got it done. And credit to Coach Flowers for doing that. They beat WSSU for the first time since I knew what WSSU was. So they got that win, and then they finish off strong against Livingstone, and they're feeling pretty good about themselves. They're poking their chest out. So hey, I can admit I was, maybe I'll try to be a little bit less critical on the coaches' picks next week. Next year probably won't happen, but it is what it is. But I wanted to put that out there. Cop my plea. Kris, you go ahead and tell me what you actually watched the game. So what were your thoughts?
Bits and pieces, and this was a game that actually was going back and forth all through the first half and getting into the third quarter, and then Johnson C. Smith just sort of just took over in this game and just applied some back-breaking type of drives of 8 plays or more 3 times and shut down Livingstone in the process. And the one thing about JCSU was defense. Their defense has been outstanding all year, and they really showed up in a really big way. The one area that's really underrated for them is special teams. Last year, they really struggled in the kicking game to the point that will cost them games. No more. They've also found ways to get guys in space in the punt returning game too that has caused quite a bit of damage. And so, and the one thing, the difference to me really between last year and this year is depth. At quarterback, you saw Tyrell Jackson. He had been seen. They went to the number 2, Robert Adams. It's been a struggle. So enters Jameer Cherry, who is a freshman, another freshman signal caller, and he has carried them the last couple of games. So I think what you're seeing is a continued remake of the Golden Bulls, and 7-3 this year. Man, it's gonna be really interesting to see what they're able to do next year.
Yeah, man. Big year for them again. They go 7-3 overall. They got a chance to beat Livingstone and I'm sure more importantly for them, WSSU enjoying those. So we'll see what happens over on Beatty's Ford Road. We will go over to Kendrick. Kendrick, look, man, talk to me, bro. You guys have been somewhere we haven't been in a while, which is in a game that matters. And at the end of the regular season game, it was all in your hands. It was all in your hands. And Fort Valley State lost. It was yours to win. You were there. What happened?
Well, first, let me just start by saying I want to talk about Bryson Williams for a second. I starting quarterback. We saw him in Fort Valley game. He looked great. Got hurt 3rd game in the season, and 2 games off. Came back in the A&M game, didn't quite look himself. He came out in that Miles game, and he looked like the old Bryson. He really tried to put that team. Like, I can tell he really wanted that game, and I just wanted to tell him, his family, his mother used to walk around the stadium with a cowbell. And that's how I met his mother, ringing that cowbell for her son. And his dad is very passionate about the game as well. And I think he's been a wonderful quarterback for us the years that he's been there. He's been through the controversies, 3 head coaches, couple different quarterback coaches. So just been there to lead that team and to see him come out in that game and try to take this team and get this team over the hump, or as they would say, to finish the drill. What was important to see. It was good to see, and I just wanted to publicly tell him thank you for his contributions to our program. I know couldn't quite get it done in his time here, but I think his time here should still be respected and honored, because that Golden Tiger football team has endured quite a bit. on and off the field. But to the game, it's week 10. There's a lot of film out about you. I don't think we could pick up a blitz if Jesus was down there and put the little part in the Red Sea in between us and the defensive line. It's been one of those type of years, and it's been like that a while. And I will say this to Bryson, that I think with the type of quarterbacks we have, we deserve better. Last year we had 37 sacks at total. This year we're at 33, so we might surpass it. We got one game left, maybe two, and our offensive line, that is an issue that needs to be addressed. We have been bad at that position for the last 3 or 4 years. That position is not developing. It is not growing. I think we have talent there, but it's not developing. It's not growing. So whatever the problem is, that needs to be addressed. It's just one of those issues that needs to be addressed really badly at Tuskegee. We went in that game with Miles. Miles is who they are. I don't know what happened to Miles in that Albany State game. I've watched that game, and I've heard, a lot of people make what happened. I don't know. I'm going to just go out on a limb. I think Miles was looking past Albany State, and they were looking down at us because Miles is a great team. That it just, no doubt about it. I think we came out, we tried to make sure that we stayed in the game. Like we were blow for blow. Our defense was up forward a little bit. But then that second half, like Miles has done all season, they just came in. They just started to weigh on you. We stopped the run. I will say that. We were able to stuff the run, but their second string quarterback came. He carved us up. Even when we would get a little pressure on him, he was just making some passes. And when I tell you that tight end for Miles, running that seam route that tight end ran, we couldn't stop it. If Miles would have ran that 20 times yesterday, I don't think they ran it 30 times. I don't think we would have stopped it a single time. Ja Andrews, the number one, the wide receiver out of Ramsey High School, bruh's a beast. His frame, he has the NFL type frame. Like, he's good. Miles has a good core, and hats off to Coach Shade. And he's one of the ones that I feel like should be up for Coach of the Year. Now, there's just a lot of debate about it, but when I think of Coach Shade, he took over a team. The team went 1-9, all right, last year. But they were 1-9. He got hired late. Let's be honest. Coach Ruffin took what he wanted when he left Miles. Took the coaches, the players he wanted, and came on Tuskegee. It left him with a bare cupboard, and to see him come around this year and piece that team together, it's the D2 space, so let's be honest. Part of the problem of Tuskegee, Tuskegee got dethroned by Miles. We had lost them 3 years in a row to a man who had coached on Tuskegee University staff, really close. We had high regards for him at Tuskegee. This man is now dominating us in a fashion that Tuskegee don't want to be dominated, especially by Miles, and it has become to this big rivalry. It's like, okay, so we hired him at Tuskegee, like, okay. And I think a lot of people might have thought that the Miles, okay, that'll fizzle out because now we have him, and so that's success. For Tuskegee to go in, let's go back to last year we played them. It was a triple overtime game. Then we get to this year, they dominate us in dominating fashion. I think you just have to give respect to his resume. Another mark on his resume, during Miles' uptime, they played a lot of SWAC schools. They couldn't beat none of them. They've come close, but they couldn't beat them. Now here, this man is in his second year. He got to win over FCS team. The resume is really good for Coach Shea, and it's like hats off. But at the same time, I don't want to get down on Tuskegee because this is Coach James's first year. We still have a first-year head coach with a lot of young talent, and I just think that the future can be bright for Tuskegee. We lost a good one. Yeah, I don't think we were championship ready this year.
Well, what you just said there, we weren't championship ready. That's a great way to, hey, sometimes things just are what they are, right? And as we go into this last game, talk about things are what they are. A couple things have been true this year, right? Winston-Salem State, Fayetteville State. Now, they're going to say it's a rivalry game. Winston-Salem State, we feel like we're everybody's rival. Let's just be honest. In the CIAA South. Overall, the series overall heading into Saturday was 51-10 18-3. So we've been playing them for 73 years, 51 wins. But they came into the game 4 out of the last 5. They're the defending CIAA champions, 5 straight CIAA Southern Division titles. And, the game was played. We also had to, they also have been winning kind of tight. And they were going up against the best offense in the CIAA South, Winston-Salem State. And so, you wondered, could WSSU, even though they lost themselves out of the championship picture, could they at least get their face back a little bit and beat Fayetteville State? Well, Kris, I want you to work us up in overtime, and then we'll see the clip, and I'll let you see the clip for the first time and see how it finished. Because you watched this, I was in Richmond. I was so happy to be up I-95.
I'm stressed
instead of down on the I-95. Talk to me, Kris.
I'm stressed thinking about this game. All right, so this game was just absolutely nuts. It was bonkers. The context to this game is Fayetteville State comes into this game averaging mid-teens in scoring offense and slightly less than that in scoring defense. So we get through the first quarter and everybody's mouth is just dropped because Winston State comes out, bam, bam, bam. Before you know it, it's 24-7 at the end of the first quarter. And the Rams are racked up 196 yards of offense. I mean, it's just that kind of onslaught. And you're just like, where's this Winston State team been all year? Oh my gosh, what's happening? Plus, I had seen a comment that was like, yeah, I know Steven's probably feeling really good right now. And anybody who knows Winston State football knows you don't get excited because it's just not that easy. Don't be fooled. Well, Fayetteville State started chipping in. And by the time we got to the end of the first half, it's 24-20. I mean, you're just like, wow, Fayetteville State's already above their season average in scoring. Can Winston State maybe pull away, or is it going to be a matter of Fayetteville finding all this offense that they really haven't had all year? And that's kind of where we ended up going into the third and fourth quarter. Both teams had some more success on offense.
I think we lost Kris. For a second. I'm sure he'll come back in just a second. But because I really want to make sure we get his reaction because he has not seen this. I'll say I was at the Virginia Union game, thank God. And my service signal wasn't great, so I wasn't able to really keep up there. And I was, focused on the game. I did see the tweet from our shout out to Keisha Kelly, Black College Experience. She said, I know Stephen Gaither's smiling. I was, but not because of the game. I couldn't see it until later. So I saw they were up. I'm like, here we go. Here they go. Now the game doesn't mean anything, but at least they'll win, And, going to the offseason, hey, satisfied. You have the best offense at the CIAA South. You beat the defending champs, maybe give yourself a chance to feel good about yourself after so many years of pain. All we know is pain at this point. So, Kris, they get into overtime, and this is what happens. So WSSU gets the ball first. They fumble the snap.
No flag. They give to Milligan. He sheds a tackle. He breaks
and you got to let this thing play out, Coach.
Win it.
This is how the game ended. And watch you see on the replay.
The Rams were worried about the flinching, and they stopped. If they show that here on the instant replay, they stopped playing because they thought that one of the linemen flinched and it was going to be offside, a false start.
Milligan's second rushing touchdown of the game ends it in overtime, 40-34 the final.
This is how the season ended for the Rams, and this is how Fayetteville State marches in. And Kobe, we just let it go back to the beginning. Really, this
on 1st and 10.
you see the players pointing. You see them jogging as he's running into the end zone.
And the Broncos
That's how the walk-off touchdown in overtime.
And I think
yeah,
the
Kris.
Rams were worried about the flinching, and they stopped.
Is that not
They
the
showed
most?
that here on our
Is that not the most WSSU post 2016 CIAA championship game finish? You have to laugh. We got to laugh to keep from crying. But Kris,
You know, it's interesting because hearing it from that point of view, because I was actually listening to the game from the WSNC folks, to Ken Winfrey and Alan Chavis and those guys, and they kind of mentioned the same thing. They thought that the offensive line for Fayetteville State had flinched enough that they should have called a false start penalty, and that just didn't happen. Yeah, and honestly, this game gave me a relapse of the first round for 2016 for Winston State when they went to Post, Long Island Post, and they lost that game on a very similar controversial what should have been a false start, and the refs didn't call it, and it became similar to a free play. You know, honestly, in this game, the officiating was a bit questionable in various phases of the game. You know, I thought, for example, that Fayetteville State had gotten a interception in the end zone to stop a Winston State drive. That wasn't overturned.
CIAA officials being questionable. Stop. I'm sorry.
I mean, but the replay isn't that good to really truly overturn anything. But it sure looked like he had the interception, and then you had this really weird sequence at the end when at the end of regulation, Fayetteville State needed to spike the ball. The clock seemed like it ran out of time, but it just somehow 3 seconds got put back on the clock. It was clear that they didn't spike the ball, and we should have been going into overtime, and that didn't happen. And they attempted a field goal, and Justin Fleming, who had been called for trying to block the punt and leaping, he actually blocked the punt. I'm sorry, blocked the field goal to go into overtime. You know, if you're Winston State, the lack of discipline is what did you in this game, where you had opportunities to allow Fayetteville State just to kick a field goal, and they ended up getting penalties on fourth down and extending drives. You know, if you're Fayetteville State, you have to feel very encouraged by the fact that you were able to score as many points as you did after, you know, just kind of leaning very heavily on your defense. So you had to feel very good, and certainly shout out to Sean Robinson in the fourth quarter. He was the one who actually got Dalen Lee to fumble the ball, the quarterback for Winston State, for them to even be in a chance to try to kick a game-winning field goal. So, you know, it's one of those things that there's a lot of what ifs. It doesn't really rest on that one play in overtime. There were just so many other opportunities for either of these teams to put away the other team, and it just didn't happen in regulation, quite honestly. You know, I know there's a lot of mixed feelings for Winston State. The fact of the matter is that they actually won one more game than they did last year. That's a plus. And I understand that the standards are high. I get it. But, you know, you kind of have to go back to the recruiting trail and to the drawing board, because there were just a lot of games that they could have won that they just did not. There is, you know, John C. Smith was one of those. Livingstone was one of those. This game was certainly one of those. You know, they're kind of in that same bucket as Elizabeth City, where you've lost a lot of games very late in the game. And end up with a losing record, but had things kind of one or two plays in the game had gone the other way, those two teams would have been left with a winning season. So,
Kris, ever the optimist, because Clearly, you saw my tweets. I'm not. Every game they've lost. Every game they've lost this year has not been because they have not had sufficient talent. Even with the injuries, and we know they're not dealing with scholarships. And Fayetteville State does have more scholarships than Fayetteville State, but every game that they've lost, talent has not been an issue. Depth maybe, but talent has not been an issue. It's been mental mistakes. It's been being unprepared. All of these things, and of course, yes, they won one more game. They won 4 games. This one's to Salem State. 4 games is not going to cut it. It's just not going to cut it, especially after years and years of losing. How often are we going to be sold the same meat and be? How long are you going to sell us beef and call it pork? I mean, it just is what it is. Is it getting better? Slightly, but better. It's still not good enough. Again, as I said last night, a lot of questions need to be answered. First we heard about resources, and of course, those need to be gotten there. There are people that are being paid to get resources, so that's their job. There are people that are being paid to coach. Student athletes, I know they take it. I talked to them last week, make sure everyone knows that no one's blaming them as individuals, and everybody's actually behind them. But, it's just certain things are just not acceptable. And we've seen too many things become norm. So with that, we'll see what happens with them. But hey, we'll talk about a team that's winning. Fayetteville State going back to the CIAA championship game, looking to repeat. They got a tough Virginia Union squad. Over in the SIAC, we got Benedict College looking to repeat as well. They got an Albany State squad that's suddenly looking a little dangerous. So, but we will talk about all that on Wednesday night. Again, this is D2 HBCU Matters. It's a little bit different, guys. With a quick reaction show. It was supposed to be quick, but it was so much great action in this week, and I think it's been a great season. So I appreciate you guys for jumping in with this idea when I came to you guys with it and making it what it is. And I appreciate everybody that's been a viewer, everybody supported, all the likes, all the comments, all the shares. Keep it coming, and we'll keep it coming as well. And again, we got championship games prepared for, then playoffs, then a bowl game, then recruiting. So I'm gonna see how much I can keep these guys here. So with that, we'll roll out, and we will see you guys on Wednesday. And remember, D2 HBCU football matters.